Alright, today we're going to begin talking about factoring trinomials. This is the most common form of a quadratic. General trinomials, we're going to start out simple, like we do with everything. We start out with the most basic and then we move to the more difficult. We're going to start out when we have in the standard form ax squared plus bx plus c if a is equal to 1. That way we don't have to worry about any extra numbers here. When you're watching this video, you should remember that we've already seen the quad solve and teach me how to factor by Westerville South High School, and you've already learned how to factor by using the greatest common factor. Those things are going to be important. When we're factoring a general trinomial, if a is equal to 1, you need to find all of the factors of the constant term, and again the constant is the c. It's the number that stands alone. That when you sum it together, and sum in math means add, gives you the value of the linear term b. And the linear term is the number in front of the x. Alright, it's the x by itself, not the x squared. I've already completely done the first example here for you. If you see on your guided note sheet, there's some places for blanks. Follow along with me as I go through there. Make sure you understand how to do this example as we move on to the second one. Our first example, we have x squared plus 5x plus 6. So when I go through on every single one of these problems, I'm going to list a, b, and c. Even though a is always going to be 1 on these, it's important to start listing a, b, and c. It'll be really important when a isn't 1, as well as when we need to do the quadratic equation and the quadratic formula later on. So a is 1, b is 5, c is 6. That means our linear term is 5 and our constant term is 6. So we need to find factors of 6 that add up to 5. The factors of 6, 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. So again, we're going to try to find the factors of 6 that add up to 5. So 1 plus 6 gives me 7, 2 plus 3 is 5. So those are the two factors that I want. Because a is 1, I know that my leading coefficient of my x's is also going to be 1, so I just left those as x. And I'm breaking this into binomials, just like we had when we foiled. You can refer to the FOIL video. So I'll have x plus 2 and x plus 3. I'm setting up two binomials. If you need to, you can pause and go back, or you can, pause or go back. My second example, this one I left a little bit more blank. You're going to have to fill in more stuff on this one. Again, if you need to pause or go back, make sure you do that. I have x squared plus 2x plus 1. Again, a is 1, b is 2, and c is 1. In this example, I have to find factors of my constant, which are 1, that add up to give me 2. So the factors of 1 are 1 and 1. That's it. That's the only two numbers you can multiply by 1 to give you 1. So then the summation, 1 plus 1 is 2. That's my only pair, right? Obviously. So I'll have x plus 1 times x plus 1. However, I don't want to leave it written like that. When you multiply something by itself, what's another way to do that? What's another way to write that? If you said squared, you're correct. If you remember, this will become very important later on when we talk about factoring special cases. This is a perfect square trinomial. My third example. Again, we're progressing from easier to hard. I've left a little more blank. I didn't give you A, B, and C this time. So I'm going to give a second here. You're going to tell me what A, B, and C are. Obviously, I'm just talking to myself right now, so hopefully you're not just talking to a TV screen, you're actually writing them down on your paper. A is 1, B is negative 7, and C is 6. The negative comes from this minus sign. Minus is also plus a negative. Be very careful when you're dealing with those signs. So now I have to find factors of 6, which are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3, that add up to be a negative 7. But because this is positive and this is negative, I know that both of my numbers are going to be negative. So I'm going to have negative 1 plus negative 6 and negative 2 plus negative 3. Negative 1 plus negative 6 is negative 7. I don't need to worry about doing the second one because that's my answer right there. So I'll have x minus 1 and x minus 7. You could write these as plus and negative. It doesn't matter either way, whatever your preference is. Again, progressing even harder, I left more stuff off. My fourth and final exam that I'm doing with you today, I have x squared minus 7x minus 10. We're going to list A, B, and C. A is 1, B again is negative 7, and C is negative 10. Again, please make sure you're getting the negative signs when there's a minus between. So now I have to find factors of negative 10. So because this is a negative, I'm only going to have one negative number. So I'm going to have 1 and 10, 2 and 5. And because this is a negative, I know that the larger of my numbers is negative. So what does that mean for me? If it means that the larger of my numbers is negative, then I have 1 minus 10 and 2 minus 5. Well, what's 1 minus 10? 1 minus 10 is negative 9. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Are either one of those negative 7? No. So that means this is not factorable. Okay? This is why we use the quadratic formula later on. This is not a factorable equation. It looks like it might be because 2 and 5, 2 plus 5 gives you 7, but that doesn't add up to negative 10. So you need to be very careful with that. It's not going to always happen. We did 4 examples. It only happened 1 time. It's going to happen very, very infrequently. All right, so not very often. So make sure that you are being careful to watch out for it because it will happen, but it's not going to happen very often. Please try the 2 problems on your guided notes page. If you have any questions, make sure you ask.